Hello everyone, we're back here for part 2 of our Luminari Box project. So again, what we're doing is we're making a Luminari box so that we can put a candle inside and so that we can go ahead and cut out designs, so when we put the candle inside it'll shine through the designs at night and we'll see the glow from the designs. So simple little box. We're going to build the box first and then we'll cut out the designs after the box is built. So in the last video I showed you how to go ahead and cut out the pieces. Again, just real quickly, they're 6 inches by 4.5 inches. You need 4 pieces that size, that they will be your sides, and then you need a little bit of extra slab, roughly about 6 inches by 6 inches, that you're going to then use as the bottom. So I'm going to set that there for the moment. So I've gone ahead and I have pre-cross-hatched all my pieces to try and speed up this process. So I'm going to start with one piece initially, and one of the side pieces. I'm going to cross-hatch the 2 sides, not the outside edges, but the 2 sides. We're going to build on top of this piece. So that's our starting piece. The next 2 pieces are going to stand up on the sides like this. So we've cross-hatched both sides of them because we're going to be joining both sides, and we've done that with these 2. And then our last piece, we cross-hatched just like the first one on these two outer sides, and it's going to go on top. So just remember, as you're building, it's on top, on top, on top. So I'm going to try and put this together rather quickly so we keep the video to a little shorter amount of time, and I'll go as quickly as I can. Just remember, every time you join a piece together, you want to cross-hatch both pieces you're joining and paint both pieces with slip. And then you're going to roll a little worm of clay, a little coil, and put in the seam. Just like the last project. We're building off of what we did on the last assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up here. Again, if you slide it back and forth, the clay will start to grab on your crosshatch marks and you'll get a nice firm join. And just make sure you're getting the outside lined up nice and flush with the other piece. Alright, take away the inside slip. Now we're going to roll just a little bit of a coil. Place that into the seam, just kind of tack it in while you support the outside so your slab doesn't move any. And again, goes kind of without saying, just like the last assignment, you want to make sure that your clay is leather hard before you start to build this. If you are trying to put it together while your pieces aren't quite leather hard, then what will happen is it'll be very flimsy. Your pieces won't have nice flat shape to them. They won't be straight. They'll get all wobbly and they just won't look neat and clean. Simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and take away a little bit of that coil as I smear it in there. Again, we want the coil there, but we don't want it to be obvious that it's there. Take my sponge, lightly sponge and smooth that seam just to smooth out that coil. Much easier to do it now than after the whole box is built. You'll find it's hard to get your hand in there otherwise. Okay, one side on. So now we want to do the same thing with this other side. I'm just going to turn this, continue to work off the same side, put slip on it. Plenty of slip on the piece that you're going to join. And then go ahead and line that up. And again, if you just give it a slight kind of wiggle back and forth, just sliding it on there till all of a sudden you'll feel it just kind of grab, and it'll get a nice join that way. Just make sure it's nice and flush with the outside edge. Take away that extra slip, press it down, make sure it's joined well. Take away the inside slip. And I'm going to take my watch off here so that I don't bump the edges and damage it. Just kind of making sure that's in place there. Okay, take a little bit of clay, make a coil to go in that seam. Again, these little worms of clay don't have to be perfect. They're just there to tack in there and reinforce that join. And you'll find until you get all four pieces together, these sides will want to wobble a little bit, so just be careful. Try to make sure they're going straight up and down. Put that coil in there and just smear it in really nicely. All right, once that's in there, again, sponge it and smooth it. All right, two sides up, last side to go, and then the bottom. So we're going to take this piece, remember the last piece, we crosshatch just like the first one, it's going to go on top again. So as I said, just remember, on top, on top, on top. Paint slip on both the pieces. And then also on the last piece. Kind of dab your slip on there, make sure you're getting plenty. All right, so you can do one or two things at this point. Make sure these are straight up and down, and you can either put it on top or you could carefully pick this up and turn it over. I'm going to do a little combo of both. I'm going to go ahead and set mine on top first. Make sure I get it kind of lined up and started. And once I get it started, then I'm going to go ahead and flip it over so that it'll be easier to put the coils in the seams. So I think we got that pretty well there. I'm just going to carefully rotate this and flip it over. And you probably won't be able to see real well here, but I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm lining up the outside, taking away the slip, doing the same thing with the inside. Just double checking that this is lined up nice and flush. Can't wiggle this one back and forth so much because the whole thing will move. So I'm just trying to get it lined up the best that I can. Okay, and a little bit of coil again. And the softer your clay is when you make this coil, the easier it is to smear it into that seam. If your clay is a little bit on the dry side, sometimes it's a little more work. But when it's a little bit on the really moist, wet side, you'll be able to tack it in there quite easily. I'm sure that's hard for you guys to see. It's hard for me to see, and I'm right here working on it. Okay, one side done. Go ahead and sponge that real quick. All right, now we're going to work on this other side. All right, take some coil, put it in the seam on that last piece. Sponge the inside once again. All right, so we got our 4 sides built. Last, we want to put our bottom on. And the bottom's going to be a little different. We don't have it cut to size. We just cut some extra slab. Okay, we left it to get leather hard, just like we did the pieces. And the reason we didn't cut it to a pattern or to a specific size is because sometimes people will make mistakes and they don't build it on top, on top, on top. And if that's the case, then the bottom doesn't fit. So if you just make spare slab, then if you do get off and you don't quite build it correctly, you'll still be able to have enough slab so that your bottom fits. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and tilt this up, and I'm going to cross hatch all 4 sides of the bottom. So just real quickly with my fork here, I'm going to cross hatch it. This one piece, just so you know, didn't seem to dry the same as the others, and it didn't shrink as much, even though I'm pretty sure I cut them all the same. So this side might be a little bit higher, so I'm trying to cross hatch a little bit extra on there so it'll soften the clay. So as I put the bottom on, it'll kind of push down and match up. So then I'm going to go ahead, clear this off. I'm going to take this and just flip it over for a moment, so I can trace and know where to cross hatch. So I'm going to go ahead and trace around the outside edge. That way I know I get it to fit correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and use my needle tool to cross hatch this section, because I don't want all the little cross hatch marks. If I go kind of crazy with them, I don't want them to show up down inside the Luminari box. When I put the coils in the seam, it will cover some of it, but I don't want them to be too extreme. And I just want you guys to know I'm trying to do this quite quickly. So when you're working on yours, don't expect to put it all together this fast. If I were just doing it on my own time, I'd be working quite a bit slower. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off because it'll be easier to do now than after I put the box on there. I'm not going to trim it right up to the line or the edge. I'm going to go ahead and leave myself a little leeway, just a little overhang, so to speak. I can scrape that overhang away later when I scrape it with the side of the rib tool or the ruler, but it'll be easier to take most of this off now. And you can see the clay's leather hard. I'm having to cut through it 3 or 4 times to actually get it to cut. So again, when it's leather hard, it should be kind of like cutting through a piece of firm cheddar cheese, as a potter named Robert Hopper said. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and put this on. Connect the two. Again, use plenty of slip. Cover up all your crosshatch marks if you can. And then same thing on the box itself. Okay, I'm going to put that last piece on there. So I'm just going to pick it up and turn it over and line it up. I've got a little bit of overhang, so I don't have to be too exact, but I want to make sure that it's on there and everything is covered the best I can get it. All right. So at this point, I'm just going to press down on it slightly. And I have another board here. So to make sure I press down evenly, I'm just going to put a board on top of it. Now you could turn it over and do it the other way, or if you have a plate or something at home, a cutting board that you can just place on top and press down. That way you're pressing evenly and not like squishing one side down. And just go ahead and put a little pressure, little body weight. Not crazy hard, just a little bit. And that should go ahead and push that down there. So now I'm going to clean away the extra slip. Outside and from the inside. So there's the outside. Just reach down inside with your finger, or you might even take your sponge and you can go ahead and clean away that extra slip. All right, so I'm going to put 4 coils down in the seams all the way around. So I can either make a couple smaller coils, or I can go ahead and see if I can make one large coil, or long coil I should say, that will go ahead and wrap completely around the inside. Probably going to be easier to do it in small sections. But we'll see what we can do here. And what you may want to do is just use the back side of a pencil or something to initially get that started. And you can tack it down so it doesn't move. Just kind of hold the coil up with one hand while you tack it down with the other. And push it into those corner seams. Didn't quite have enough to make it all the way around, but we were close. Just a little bit more. All right, so if I hold this up just to show you guys, hopefully you can see down in the camera there, down inside the Luminari, I should say. Got that coil sitting in there, so now I'm going to tack it down and then smear it and smooth it out, just like the other project. So what we work on, it builds into each project. We don't skip any corners, so to speak, or cut corners. It's the same thing when we're doing slab construction, when we're joining clay to clay. We want to go ahead and cross hatch and slip, and we want to put coils in the seams. About the only time we don't do that is when we're doing coil pots, because the clay is so soft we can just pinch and blend it together. Alright, just working to get that all smeared in. And your hand's usually in the way here, so you can't always see what you're doing, so you just kind of learn to feel with your fingertips. And you can feel when it's smooth, you can feel when you have it all blended in. You don't always necessarily have to be able to look down inside to see it. As you just kind of smear or drag your finger along the top, you can tell if you've got it blended in nice and evenly. All right, so I've got that in there. I'm going to take my sponge, give it a quick sponge, see if I can smooth it out, and then we'll clean up the outside a little bit. Small area, not easy to get your hand in there. Okay, so if I hold this up for you guys to see again, hopefully you can see down inside there. Got that coil and all the seams, it's smoothed out. I'll go back in and I'll sponge it a little bit more, but that should give you guys the idea. So now, we've got this little bit of overhang on the outside, and again, you can see the seams where we joined it. So what I will do is take my ruler or rib tool or ID card, and I will stand it up here, and I will scrape along the outside edge in order to smooth away that excess overhang from my slab where I attach the bottom so that it's flush with the side of the box, and it'll also help to hide the seam. Now on the seams up here, I will go ahead and drag up this way, and I will try and hide the seams there. If they don't hide the seams, if you can still see afterwards, if I have some gaps, I'll take a small coil just like the last assignment, and I'll go ahead and I'll place it and tack it right where the seam is, and then I'll go ahead and I'll blend it in, and I'll let that kind of hang there for 5 or 10 minutes so that it blends in and it joins well. After it's blended in, then I'll take my rib tool or my ruler or my ID card, and I'll go back and I'll scrape that, just like I said. I'll scrape this way and I'll scrape up, and what it will do is it'll go ahead and stay flush with the surface, and it'll hide those seams. I will do that all the way around, and then I will sponge and smooth everything out, and then I will bag it up for a day just to give everything a chance to join. And then I will be back with the last part of the video to show you guys about how we're going to cut out our designs and clean it up to turn it into a Luminari. All right? Hope that makes sense. just remember, it's the same process as the last project. It's just a little bit different shape that we're working with. See you guys in the next video.